This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV. We're very pleased today to be joined by Jonathan Strachan, the Ship Design and Engineering Director of Houlder Limited.
In my role as Director of Ship Design and Engineering, my responsibilities include managing major design scopes. Recent jobs include a pre-feed study for FPSOs for AM+, with the ultimate client being Chevron. Technical studies of and specification development for the UK fleet solid support vessel. That was via the Team Metis project with Kinetic. We just see, so we're doing the basic and detailed design for the conversion for installation of a reliquefaction plant on a series of 5 LNG carriers. That's quite a big project for us, and that will be scheduled for the refit start at the end of this year, beginning of next year, so that we're still busy with that. And one of the projects I think that's kind of led us to this point of thinking that conversions are going to pick up is the concept design for conversion of a ro-ro ferry built at FSG for conversion to a multi-role vessel as a future littoral strike ship. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And then other ones we've done conversions of studies of conversions of LNG carriers into power barges. We worked through those with Houlder in Japan. And yeah, that's about it really.
Can you discuss how this pandemic has impacted Houlder Limited to date?
Okay, so as you know, the UK went into lockdown in March. Since then, most of Houlder's design and admin staff have been working from home. However, we have a number of on-site staff that continue to oversee our new build projects, our refits, and our work that's in the offshore wind turbine installation components. So those ones that I mentioned to you earlier that need to be modified for a specific installation or specific vessel. We're working on that on site. So we have some continuing on-site work. So that's good. The downside, I would say, at the moment, the offshore oil and gas, there's very little going on, except for work that definitely requires to be undertaken. So if there's some modifications to some lifeboat davits that have to be done, then we're working on those. The cruise ship sector, we've traditionally done, we've traditionally done a lot of work in the offshore oil and gas sector, and we've recently started to carve out a niche for ourselves in the cruise ship sector. With doing refits, overseeing refits for clients, and doing quite a lot of design work for the installation of ballast water treatment system. However, those projects in the cruise ship industry have reduced dramatically. There is better news. The number of new build projects are continuing. As I mentioned before, the UK Polar Research Vessel is now up to full speed pretty much at Camel Laird, and we've recently increased our on-site team to cover the increase in inspection work going on there. Another new build project that we've recently signed, so we sign with our client signs with the shipyard, has been signed at Hyundai Mipo Dockyard, and that's for a purpose-built hybrid RoPax ferry for the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company, due for delivery in 2023. And we have another new build project that should come online soon, and that will be being built in the Far East, but I'm not at liberty to mention anything about that. And existing ships in the offshore wind industry, that's fairly buoyant at the moment. So as you can imagine, a lot of the installations of these components need sea fastenings or grillages on the deck for transporting the wind turbine blades, the nacelles and the towers. And we're doing quite a lot of work for a number of clients to design that structure for integration on the vessel. And as I mentioned, integration of our gripper arm for installation of the piles as well. So that's pretty positive. And then for naval work, we are the UK MOD's client friend on the Type 31 frigate project. and we're part of Team Metis for the writing the spec for the Fleet Solid support ship. So we're providing that ongoing work for the UK MOD.
When you look at the industry in a macro sense, how do you see this business disruption event impacting the industry in the near and the long term?
So I can tell you what we've seen has increased over the last few months. And one thing that definitely has started to happen is there's a lot more interest from clients specifying projects that will reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, primarily on new builds, but certainly at the concept and tendering design stage, they want us to make sure that that's kind of baked into the design that they're getting. So not only making sure that they comply with the current regulations as they stand, but have some flexibility for integrating further measures in the future to make sure they're compliant. Because as you know, vessels will be around for 20 years, and you know the regulations can continue to change, and these clients want to make sure they're at the forefront of these things.
How do you see the whole evolution of modern propulsion solutions impacting your job?
Yeah. So what I think clients are asking us in general is to, you know, how does integrating this technology or that technology actually reduce the CO2 emissions or reduce my fuel consumption? And we've been asked this enough times for us to have generated our own in-house tool that, based on the actual operating profile of the ship, actually assesses the CO2 emissions for different options, whether you want to go for hybrid with batteries, diesel electric, or whether you want to go for LNG or other options. And it can assess and say, well, actually, for your operating profile, even though it might be opportune or sound good to go for a hybrid system, actually it might increase your CO2 emissions because your operating profile doesn't meet it. So I think that helps us to quickly assess what the options are. But you're right, more on a more macro level, you know, once you want to get past the 20%, 30% reductions in CO2 emissions, you know, you're really talking either alternative fuels or some kind of CO2 capture. And we've got quite a few people inquiring about studies for hydrogen. There's quite a lot of interest in Scotland in hydrogen. And a lot of these wind turbines, the more stranded ones, people are thinking, rather than generating electricity, having a long cable, what about if they actually generated the hydrogen themselves?
And when you look at by vessel niche at opportunities in the upcoming 12 to 24 months, where do you see opportunity?
So I think going back to a little bit of the green agenda, I think there will be some conversions, and I would not say conversions, but modifications to vessel to integrate powering reduction systems. So for example, Silverstream's air lubrication system, where we work for them with their engineering partner. So we provide the design engineering for the installation of their components and systems. So we would expect that to grow, and similar green modifications to vessels. I think there are at the moment such a large number of vessels that are laid up that the costs of those vessels and clients considering scrapping does mean that they're really good value, and that means that the opportunities for converting them to other trades becomes opportune. Now, we have done a couple of studies for a couple of clients on converting some offshore vessels to a new role. I can't give you any more details on them, but yeah, I think this will happen because the prices are right, I think.
But looking at your balance of work today, what do you count as the 2 or 3 most interesting, complex, or innovative projects that you have going on in your portfolio right now?
I think we have the Prevail project, which is the conversion of a 4,100 meter FSG ro-ro to a multi-role vessel for navies to use as a kind of littoral strike ship, or a logistical support vessel, or a variety of those things. So it has a big open deck forward that can take 2 Chinooks. As converted, it has opportunity to launch landing craft from 2 simultaneously. It has accommodation for over 400 embarked military personnel, space for a hospital, and then has ro-ro capacity. We're also doing a conversion of a ro-ro vessel for another trade. So taking an existing ro-ro and changing the cargo orientation for another route. But we're doing a modification to a series of 5 LNG vessels for installation of a relic plant on board. And that's an ongoing, so we're going all the way through from feasibility concept through to detailed design, and we're providing these drawings for the shipyard for the conversion. So they're pre-building the deck house for installation of all these components, and then the components come over from the relic, the engineering company that's building the relic plant, and then they install that on the vessel.
Looking at your career as bookends, is there one particular project that you consider to be the most interesting, the most challenging, the most innovative, the most difficult?
Yeah, I mean, we a few years ago, it wasn't a conversion from one vessel type to another type, but it was a series of 4 reefer vessels were lengthened by installing a 31 meter, effectively a container hold in the middle. And at the same time, 3 of the existing holds were being converted for a side loading system. So you can imagine the container hold is a very wide hold. And then we are also installing a side loading system that's cutting holes in the main deck and all the decks below at the side of the ship. So maintaining the structural continuity for that was interesting, and involved the installation of a large insert throughout a large section of the vessel, basically from the aft side loading system to the forward side loading system on that side of the ship. It required quite a lot of structural design, a lot of finite element analysis, and I think it was a proper stretch of what's possible. And the good thing about it was that the client ended up very happy, and their charterer has found it a really good conversion for them.